This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
From the gridiron to the ball diamonds, from the hardwood to the ice rinks, from the fairways to the octagon and everywhere in between. If it makes headlines, it's fair game on the Sports Reel podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network. And with that, we welcome you to the Sports Reel podcast here on the PFC Entertainment Network. Along with Tim Sheridan, I'm Jason Klaus. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here this week. This is a big week. What? Okay, let's peel the curtain back a little bit. I ran into a snafu or three right before we came on the air here. Like I have the setup that I use when we do our on location things that my girl had got me for Christmas. Just an incredible setup, but I haven't gotten everything out to set it up here in my home studio. So I had been using the other headset and the other mixer and all that because it's more compact. It's easier to deal with. I don't have to unhook a bunch of shit. Well, as I was getting everything hooked up, the headset snapped right in half. You want to talk? Now, I'm already having a day, Tim. I don't mind telling you. I'm fired the fuck up, if I can be honest with you. Okay. There is a saying, and it's as old as the day is long. It is always calmest right before the storm. There is a reason why they call it the calm before the storm. With that being said, there is a contingent of people that had best damn well invest in a good umbrella because the storm is coming. Okay.
Eagles fans.
I love you so much for that. Thank you for that. That's, yeah, probably. Let's get back to why we are here. And we are live streaming this across Riverside.fm as well as the PFC Network page on Facebook. If you have questions, comments, you want to chime in on the conversation, you are welcome to do so with the live chat that is on the Facebook feed. We do get the notifications on our screen. So by all means, man, we're obviously going to be focusing a lot on apparently there's something happening on Sunday that's going to emanate from New Orleans, Louisiana, and we'll go ahead and that's what the meat of the show is going to be about, because this Sunday it does come down to the final game of the NFL season, Super Bowl 59. You will see the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Kickoff is scheduled for 6:30. I know this has become a nothing short of a holiday, an unofficial holiday for sports fans, for football fans. But I got to be honest with you, Tim. This is the first year in a while that I haven't been overstimulated with all the ads, with all the hype, all the commercials advertising this game. And I don't know if it's just because I haven't been paying as close attention to television or things of this nature, but even on social media, usually around this time of the week leading into the Super Bowl, like it's all you see. Every other post is something about this big game. I haven't been seeing a whole hell of a lot about that this year. Is it just me? Have you seen a lot of hype around this game?
Well, I have, but my algorithm is probably a little bit different than yours is because obviously I'm the Chiefs fan here.
Right.
You're the guy who walks around wearing Eagles hat and Carolina hat. So yeah, I've seen a lot hyping up for it. And I'm excited for it. I understand there's a lot of people out there that are probably a little disappointed that the Chiefs are back in it. But all I can say to you is, sucks to be you because the Chiefs are the greatest team ever right now, and you can't beat them. I'd say much worse things, but I'm trying to go a little PG with this from now on. I mean, I don't know where this show is going, so I don't want to drop too many like F bombs. Fuck it, I'm gonna say them anyways. Because who gives a fuck? But
You've had a day too, haven't you?
oh, I've had a hell of a day. Like
Yeah.
I've had a hell of a week. This last 2 weeks have been fucking crazy at work. Like we've gone we're shorthanded again, which isn't really shorthanded. It's probably right where we should be with the amount of employees we have right now. But it's just with one less employee, it just means more work for us. So I've been busy. So like I know I have a 3-day weekend coming up because I got smart this year and actually took the Monday after Super Bowl off so I can get pretty shit faced during the Super Bowl, which is my plan. Like I do plan on doing that. And I'm gonna do that while I watch the Chiefs, win 3 in a row. I don't want to say three-peat because apparently that's been trademarked and we can't use that unless we pay somebody. Did you ever hear about that? I'm sure you heard something about it.
I saw it yesterday, as a matter of fact. Pat Riley,
Yes, sir.
the coach of he was the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and when they were going for their 3 in a row, he went ahead and trademarked that word. Which, okay, brilliant brilliant move on his part. But he ain't the only one I've ever heard. I'll be honest with you. The first time I heard three-peat wasn't in with the Lakers. It was actually watching. This is going to sound so stupid, but this is the first time I heard the word three-peat was WrestleMania 6 when Demolition was going for their 3rd tag team championship. That's the first time I heard that word. That was back in 1990, and I was like. Then I saw that thing pop up. I think it came up on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Pat Riley? Okay, pal. Look, it's not cheap to trademark something.
No.
It really isn't. So he must have had a hell of a lot of confidence in his abilities. And certainly at that time, he had more than enough coin to make that happen. But yeah, by and large, we're not supposed to be saying the words Super Bowl either. But I mean, that's what the fuck this is.
Yeah, it's the Super Bowl. Super Bowl. Find me, motherfuckers.
They're gonna find me. But
sucks to be Jason.
I was like, well, whatever. Fucking just bring it. Just let it roll. But yeah, man, they're going for 3 in a row. It would be the first time in NFL history that this would happen. So there's a lot of people who are tuning. There's going to be, make no mistake about it, whether we're seeing a lot of advertisements for this game, a lot of media hype. Now, I don't have cable in the traditional sense, so I haven't been paying a whole hell of a lot of attention to ESPN or the NFL Network, but I'm sure that their airwaves are just, around the clock, covering this thing, no doubt about it. But the mainstream media, and I don't know if it's because they're hyper focused on everything else going on in our country, around the world. Tim, airplanes are falling out of the sky right now. Yeah. And at an alarming rate. And I saw somebody post something. Well, this happens all the time. They just don't report it. No, I'm not going to buy that because I feel like if an airplane fell out of the sky or it collided with a helicopter or something along these lines, I don't give a fuck what else is going on and around the world. We're going to be hearing about that. Yeah. You and I have talked off air, and I'm planning a trip to Las Vegas here in a couple of months, and we had talked about flying. We ain't flying no more. like we're adjusting our vacation to where we're going to be driving out to Vegas. It takes about 27 hours, but I would much rather do that and know that I'm getting there in one piece than, risk playing the role of Superman just without the superpowers. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I just haven't seen a whole lot of mainstream buzz around this game, and I don't know. I think back to when the last time this occurred to me, and if I can be honest with you, I think it goes back to the Super Bowl where it was the Rams and the Titans. I want to say it was 2000. I may have that wrong. Super Bowl 33, I think it was. Rams barely, got out of there with the win. But that's the last time like a Super Bowl had been approaching, and like nobody gave a shit about it. I don't know if it's because of the teams that were in it at that time. These were not marquee players. Kurt Warner played for the Rams. Steve McNair was the quarterback for the Titans. But even with this, with history on the line for Kansas City, I just anticipated there would be a lot more buzz. Is it because this narrative, about the ref controversies and all this stuff, has that overshadowed this game in your opinion, or no?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
No, yeah, I haven't heard anything about that.
No, nothing at
No.
all.
Well,
No.
maybe it was.
I think the refs are outstanding, and that's all I've ever heard. No, that's probably got a lot to do with people are sick of the Chiefs being there. And me as a Chiefs fan, I'm happy that they're there.
Right.
I just, I think honestly it would be a bigger deal if it was anybody but Philly in that position. We just saw the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Right.
This was the exact Super Bowl we saw 2 years ago, and it's going to have probably the exact outcome. But, we were kind of hoping. You look at viewership numbers in the NFL this year. Who was the highest rated team in the NFL this year that everybody was watching?
The Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions. Everybody wanted, and I tell you right now, if they were in it, this would be the highest watched Super Bowl in history. I'll just say that right now. It really would. The problem is they're not in it. They had a shit game. They got knocked out. It happens. You know what I mean? Like, there's only 2 teams that are going to be in it out of 32 at the end of the year. The Lions just aren't one of them. It just so happens to be the Eagles, which they just, 2 years ago matched up against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and lost, and they're going to do the same thing now. And people are just sick of seeing the same show over and over and over again. Everybody's going to be pissed off one way or the other. If you're a fan of a team, you're going to be pissed that your team's not there. Everybody, and you're going to watch the Super Bowl regardless. People are still going to watch the Super Bowl. I don't give a fuck what they say. They're still going to turn it on. They're still going to watch it. What the fuck else is there to watch on Sunday, evening besides the Super Bowl? This will still be a huge, audience that watches it. There's still a fucking million Swifties out there who are going to tune into this shit. I love the Swifties. I'm one myself. Not really. I couldn't really.
Oh. I was like, wait, what?
But
that was not on my bingo card of things I thought I'd hear today, if I could be honest.
I'm gonna break out my purple dress and everything to wear during the Super Bowl. But fucking people are still gonna tune in and watch this. There's just not that much hype because we've seen this.
Mm-hmm.
Like honestly, like 2 years ago, we saw the same matchup. It would have been the same thing if it was the Chiefs and the 49ers again. Somebody wanted some new blood in there. You know what I mean? If the Lions made it, it would have been huge, pushed to the max. Obviously, the Lions, the number 1 watch team in the NFL, they are America's new team. Like, it's America's team now, and if the ratings proved it alone, fuck Buffalo when they tried to claim it. Can't happen. You got to go off ratings. More people watch the Lions than Buffalo. I love Josh Allen, but your team's never going to fucking make it with Patrick Mahomes. Like, just switch to the NFC, Josh. Get traded to the NFC, and you might make a Super Bowl. Other than that, you're fucked. But yeah, like honestly, like I was watching something the other day, and they were talking. I can't remember who was. Oh, I was watching. It was something off 97 won the ticket, and they were talking about the Lions losing all their coaches. They've lost a fair amount. We've got new offensive, defensive coordinators. a lot, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn have been picking our coaching staff, taking the people that they wanted to take with them. This is a normal transition for a good team to go through these type of things. But they were bringing up the fact, one guy was saying the Lions were still going to be good this year, and I can't remember which host it was, but he said, no, they're not. They're not going to be good. I believe 100% fully the Lions are going to be good, if not better, next year than they were this year. But he was making the point, like, the one guy was saying they'll be good this year. Look at the Chiefs, they do it. And I've said the same thing on this podcast. Chiefs lose their coordinators all the time, and they're still good. They're still going to Super Bowls. But the one thing the Lions don't have that the Chiefs have, and the other host brought this up, was they don't have he put it this way. He said they don't have Michael Jordan, which he was equivalent, equating that to Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like, if the Lions had a Patrick Mahomes, they'd still be good. I still think they're going to be good, if not better. But they were saying, I don't know why I brought that up. I'm lost now. Did I just squirrel myself?
Well, you let me take this on to a sidebar. You mentioned 97 won the ticket, and the Detroit Sports Talk channel, on radio there. Mike Valeni. I've been listening to this guy for years. He's one of my influences as to why I wanted to get into this kind of genre. Because he is polarizing, he is controversial, but he is entertaining as all get out. He is smarter than shit. And what you had said there, that you had heard on that station, sounds like something he would have said.
It might have been him who said it.
Because he's also gone on a rant about, I hate to keep bringing this up, but this is what sparked me asking the initial question to you. Is the referee controversy feeding into the way the Super Bowl is being received by the general public? Because he went on, and this surprised me from him, because he is a hardcore sports guy. Like, he knows his shit. He really, truly does, whether you agree with him or not. Like, he does his homework. But he equated this to a WWE show. And to hear him pull that comparison, I'm like, okay, I don't know what came across his radar to make him go down that rabbit hole, but having a Mike Valeni talk about things like this, I'm like, man, is he speaking on behalf of a good portion of the audience? And that's why there hasn't been the kind of anticipation that we're used to seeing, or that I'm used to experiencing in the week leading up to the big game. So I don't know.
I hate I hate the WWE comparison. No, there's no comparison with that in the NFL.
No.
There's too many people that bet on these fucking games, and there'd be all outrage. Even though there is betting on WWE, which is it blows my fucking mind that people bet on who's going to win these matches and shit like that. So, like, you guys know that this shit is pre-written. You know what I mean? Like, come on now, like, they know who's going to win beforehand. Like, how the fuck are we betting on this? But football's not like that. I gave you the stats last week. If you want to listen to the stats, go back to last week's show. You can listen to the stats and see which way the refs actually favor quarterbacks in this league. And you'll find out very quickly that shit is shot down all around the board on almost everything. The problem is, and I've said this a million times, the Chiefs are so fucking good, people hate them. Same way they hated Tom Brady and the Patriots. The same thing they're doing now to the Chiefs and Mahomes. So get off the storyline of the refs. Do refs make bad calls? Sure, they do it in every fucking game. You can watch it through regular season all the way up. Refs make bad calls. Should the NFL investigate a way to take some of those calls out of their hands? They tried in that last Chiefs game. They sent a ton of calls to New York to evaluate those calls and send back down their calls to override the refs were being very cautious in that game. They were sending everything to New York, so that way they couldn't get blamed for anything that was going on, pretty much the way that I felt. Or the NFL was trying to cover their asses, and it still worked out in the Chiefs' favor. So now it's like people are still pissed, saying that the Chiefs are favored by the refs. And Sometimes do they get more calls? Sure, but every good team does. The Lions started getting that throughout the season. They were good. They were getting the benefit of the doubt. They're a good team. That's usually what happens with good teams. They usually get the benefit of the doubt in those situations. But they took the gloves off, sent it to New York, and the shit came back, and people are still throwing a fit about it. So fuck off, everybody. Chiefs are good. Like, I hate to say it, but just fuck off. Like, the refs are not favoring the Chiefs, like, at all. The Chiefs have lost this year. They lost to Buffalo once this year. If they're favoring them, they would have went fucking undefeated the whole entire season all the way to the end. Like, that shit's not real. Or you go back to last season when they didn't even win the conference, and they had to go and play 3 games on the road. If it was the truth the Chiefs are being favored by the fucking refs, then how did they not win the number 1 seed last year? You know, like, just get over the stories. They're just that good. They're playing at a different level than everybody else in the NFL, and everybody looks at them because, yeah, do they play 1-score games? Sure, they do. They really do. They go out there and they just barely win. Is it because they're not that good? No, it's just they know that they don't have to go out there and kill themselves to beat a team, so they do just enough to beat a team, make it to the playoffs, and then they pick it up in the postseason. We've seen it 2 years in a row now. Yeah, they step up their game in the postseason because that's when it fucking matters. You know what I mean? And they're going into this game healthy. That's unlike a lot of other teams. I wish the Lions had a little bit of that. I love the fucking Lions. But if they just stop killing themselves through the regular season and losing 18 players on defense, you know, they could have skated through this and been more healthy going into the playoffs, and we'd have a different, you know, Super Bowl going on right now. But this is just how the Chiefs play. They're smart. This is Andy Reid. You know what I mean? Andy Reid's only going to have his players do enough to win the games to get to the game that they need to get to, and they're there once again. You know, that's 5 times in the last 7 years the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl. That's fucking insane numbers.
And the last time we saw anything like this was with the New England Patriots. Yeah, when Tom Brady was playing for them,
and people were bitching just as much.
Yeah, and before that, we can trace it back to the Dallas Cowboys. You know, when they had a little run going there, and which garnered that America's team tag that they just will not let go of, which is, I almost made a.
They need to let that shit go. They lost it. Really, they haven't been relevant in 30 fucking years. Get over yourselves. Dallas Cowboys suck.
What was it? 1996? Yeah. I said last
29
week.
Years.
Yeah.
29 years.
The last time they had won a Super Bowl, and when you look at it like that, you're like, you know, for us, we think of 1996, and it's like, oh, that was just a handful of years ago. No, that was a long ass time ago at this point. So,
but the more we look back at these, the more I realize that I'm starting to get old, Jason. Like,
who are you talking to?
Like, fuck, got into it. Old already?
Yeah, you are. So am I. You know, we were watching the Royal Rumble last weekend, and yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it at the very end of the show here. That's not what people tune in for. But as a sidebar, you know, we're talking about age. My dad actually sat down and watched a little bit with me, and he recognized a couple of the guys. He's like, "Holy shit, that guy's still going!" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I could go in there tomorrow and become world champion if I wanted to. Age ain't nothing but a number." But then you put it in perspective like that. I was like, damn. A lot of time has really gone by since, because I can remember being in Atlanta, Georgia in '96 and saw the Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl. Donnelly was the quarterback of Pittsburgh, and I was like, that's who I wanted to, you know, that's who I wanted to win. Didn't happen that way because Troy Aikman was on another level back then. But then you see Troy Aikman now, and now he is the John Madden of this era, and it's like, yeah, Tim, we are where we are age wise, pal. I hate to be the one to break it to you.
96 doesn't seem that long ago.
No, it really doesn't.
Fucking 29 years ago, like shit.
I know. It's fucking nuts. All right, aside, take the ref bullshit off the plate, and I will also say, to reiterate, Tim did a tremendous amount of research last week that debunks a lot of this narrative. And if you did not catch that, it is in the archives. Just look for last week's Sports Reel podcast. He breaks it all down. And while I could... Okay, Jim Burgett.
You're old too. Don't fucking deny it. You're old just like us. I remember breaking into the damn business with you, and that was fucking a long ass time ago. We were at those training classes together. I was 16 years old, Jim. That was fucking 30 something years ago. Not quite 30. 20, almost 25 years ago. So I know you're old as balls too. So knock it off.
What drives me nuts about let me calm down, because I say it with all love and respect for Jim.
Oh, I love Jim.
He is exactly 2 weeks younger than I am. Okay, 14 days younger than I am. And during our time in the business, he would always say, "Oh my God, I don't want to do too much because I don't want to get hurt and this, that, and the other thing," which I totally understood. And by and large, he did not receive a lot of injuries from professional wrestling. He got hurt more playing fucking softball. And if you thought for 1 second I was going to let that shit lie, you had another thing coming. But for him to come up here and put that comment on our live chat.
Well, I could tell you this: out of all my years in the business, I've only seen 2 people get taken away out of ambulances during a show, and one of them was Jim Burgett.
Oh.
So, yeah. So he might not have any lasting injuries, but he's been injured.
Yeah. Love you, Jim. Appreciate you tuning in here this week.
Love you too, brother. I can't wait to get you back on the show. I know baseball season, spring training's right around the corner, so we need to get you back on, brother.
Yeah, and we certainly will. And he's got a lot to say about the upcoming baseball season, specifically with the Detroit Tigers. But we're going to table that. We'll start getting more into that next week here on the show as we start to preview the upcoming MLB season. Take the refs off the table. You got Mahomes, you got Hurts, the 2 starting quarterbacks here for these franchises. What are the other dominating storylines that you see? That, clearly.
That's it.
So the quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley shutting him down or finding a way to shut him down. Those are the dominating headlines heading into the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, honestly, let's be truthful here. It's Mahomes and it's Saquon. Jalen Hurts hasn't even been in the discussion. Like he's a good quarterback, but he's not like a superstar. Like he's not on the level of Mahomes. Mm-hmm. But they do have somebody who plays a different position that truly is probably on the level of Mahomes, and that's Saquon Barkley. So that is the headlines right now. That is their whole team. Like they have a good defense. Granted, they had probably the best defense in the league this year. Philly, that's what I'm talking about. Philly probably had the best defense in the league, but their whole offense was based around Saquon Barkley. Like Jalen Hurts had a great last game against Washington. Great game. Give him all the credit in the world, but he's not that top tier quarterback. So you're pretty much Mahomes, who is, I mean, granted, I'm not even the person. 97-1 ticket said he's the Michael Jordan of the NFL right now. He's the greatest to do it right now, and he'll probably go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. He doesn't matter who you put on that team's going to be successful as long as he's, behind center. Saquon Barkley is the Eagle. So if you can shut down Saquon, the Chiefs got a straight shot in there. But yeah, that's the narrative I've been hearing is Mahomes. I mean, obviously you got Kelsey, the great. A lot of people are saying the greatest tight end to ever do it.
And what's your opinion on that, real quick? Kelsey being, yeah.
I mean, he's an insanely good tight end. I know a lot of people hate on him now because he's with Taylor Swift. People loved him before he was with Taylor Swift. I don't know where the hate comes from because Taylor Swift is super loved in this country. So I don't understand that. Where I think Taylor Swift was just shown too much on TV. You know what I mean? When we're trying to watch a football game and it pissed people off. Other than that, if she wasn't shown so much, they'd probably still love him as much. But you know, he's still a great tight end. Is he the greatest of all time? I don't know. You know what I mean? That's up to question. And maybe if he plays a couple more years, which I believe he plans on doing, he can get to that status. But he's right on that. You know, he's almost to the edge of the mountaintop. Like he's about to climb up there. You know what I mean? But he's had an incredible career, whether it was with Alex Smith or it was with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Patrick Mahomes took him to another level, but he was just as good with Alex Smith. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's a great tight end, and nobody can knock that. I mean, he's either 34 or 35 years old right now, and he's still out there playing at a high level. I know people say he dropped off in the regular season, but he stepped back up in the postseason, and that's when it fucking matters. So, like, don't knock the guy if he did a little bit less in the preseason, but at the same time, you also have to understand, or not in the preseason, but in the regular season, you have to understand that through the majority of this season, why the Chiefs have went 15-2, they had no fucking wide receivers. Everybody was injured until they got D-Hop. Then you added a piece there, but they were short on offensive help. So, of course, when Kelsey goes out there, he's going to get double teamed a lot. But if you really break down the game and you watch it, Kelsey is so smart. You know what I mean? The way that he picks up blocks, you know, even in a situation when the play doesn't even call for him to pick up this block, he will backtrack to pick up this block because he sees a blitz coming in and he picks up this block. His football mentality is so far above most other tight ends in the league that, yeah, I mean, he should be in discussion for greatest tight end of all time because it's not just his pass game ability, it's also his blocking ability, and that's a big part of the tight end position that people forget about. He might not be catching every pass on the field, but what blocks is he making? You know, what is he doing to draw attention off other receivers? That's a huge part of the game that Kelsey doesn't get enough credit for that he does so well.
A couple of points I want to make on that. And as you were talking, I wrote a few things down here. We saw very much late last season, Sam Laporta was seeing the ball a lot.
Yes.
For the Lions. And this kid started popping up on marquees, and he started becoming like one of the faces of the franchise. As we got into this season, we didn't see him nearly as prominent until later on. Like for some people, they straight up asked me, is Laporta still on the team? Yeah, fuck yeah, he's still on the team. They haven't had to use him. Last week, we went into a little bit of a sidebar about Andy Reid and the greatness that he is. And I went on record and said, you know, if this winds up materializing into a three-peat, he has solidified his spot on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest coaches of all time. Whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. You can't not deny that if he does this. We started to see that with Kelsey this year. You know, he like last year, it was the Mahomes and Kelsey show. You didn't see one without the other. This season, you know, we knew Kelsey was still there, but there were games where it's like you didn't hear his name very, very much unless you had to, until you got into the last part of the season and coming into the postseason. Like you were saying, that's when it counts. When you go to your go-to guy. That's what we've seen here. So very high level, very much one of the faces of the NFL for whatever reason, because of what he's doing on the field or who he's dating off of it. It doesn't make a shit and bit of difference, because I can't tell you, I can walk into my place of work probably starting tonight And I'm going to be seeing more Kelsey shirts and jerseys and things of that nature than I will any other player, including
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes.
Well,
So, go ahead.
I was just saying he's a high level player, and you have to respect him because he doesn't give a shit about winning, or not
Right.
about winning, but about stats. He cares about winning. He doesn't care if the ball goes to somebody else. You know what I mean? He just cares about winning, and that's why I have so much respect for him, because it doesn't matter if he catches the ball 10 times in a game. He could catch it once. He's still making his blocks, and he feels like he has a successful game. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if he scores touchdowns. He doesn't care as long as the team's winning. But continue on with what you were saying.
No, that was just an observation that I had made when people start shitting on Travis Kelsey and he's not as prominent of a part of the game plan as he once was. No, make no mistake about it. He is.
Yeah.
He's their money in the bank. You know what I mean? Like you cash him in when you need that win.
Well, and on top of that, like Andy Reid trusts him, and I mean, sometimes he breaks off routes, and he's the only one that's allowed to do it, to break off a route and kind of make shit happen. Like he has enough football mentality to be able to say, this road isn't going to fucking work, so I'm going to break over here. You know what I mean? Like he has the ability to see the play falling apart and find a way to get open that a lot of other people don't have, because they just run. I mean, granted, a lot of coaches are going to get pissed off if you don't run their exact routes that they want. But Kelsey has, the ability now and permission pretty much from Andy Reid to get open. Do what you need to do to get open. Make these blocks, get open, and try to make this play. And a lot of people don't get afforded that because they don't understand that they don't have the football mentality that Travis Kelsey has, and that's what makes him so good. And people shit on him saying he didn't do good to the year. I think if you look up his regular season statistics, I think he was still on 975 yards this season. He almost broke 1,000 again. You know what I mean? He still had a good season. He just didn't have as many touchdowns. He didn't need it.
Right.
And he doesn't give a shit about it either, because they're in the Super Bowl again. And that's why I have so much respect for him, because he doesn't care. He's not a numbers chaser. He doesn't care if he goes down statistically as the greatest tight end of all time. That doesn't matter to him. If you even ask him, like, because I listen to New Heights podcast, big shout out to those guys. I mean, I don't know if you've ever listened to it. It's an awesome podcast, drops every Wednesday. Him and Jason are fucking hilarious. They're a good hour of time it's entertaining as hell. He just cares about winning. He doesn't care how it happens, and he gives big props to his teammates when they go out and get those touchdowns. He doesn't need them. He also doesn't consider himself the greatest tight end of all time. I mean, he puts Tony Gonzalez up on that, that pedestal, which is a former Chiefs tight end also, who his records are astonishing. But in the postseason, you break it down in the postseason, Travis Kelsey is one of the best receivers of all time in the postseason. I mean, I think he's even beat Jerry Rice's records at this point. So, I mean, statistically, in postseason wise, you could say he's the greatest of all time, but he doesn't give a shit about that if they don't bring home the big one.
Right. No, and that's an aspect that a lot of people don't take the time to dial in on, because it's not a one or two person show here. You have to rely on your whole team. Football is a team sport.
Yeah.
And so when you see a guy on that level, because of the popularity that he's gotten for whatever reason, again, whether it's on the field or off the field, it doesn't make a difference. He is a celebrity in every sense of the word at this point. But when it comes down to it, he's able to put that shit to the side and focus on the task at hand. And that's what I respect about him, because how many players, Tim, have we seen become standouts in college? They get drafted into the NFL. They get a little bit of fame, a little bit of notoriety, and it goes right up to their head. And the next thing you know, it starts to affect what they're doing on the field. And before you know it, they're out of the NFL just as fast as they came into it. But now more with a lot of baggage on them now, because now you have established yourself as a problem. Yeah. You have become a stain on that particular team, or in some cases, the entire league. Kelsey keeps shit in perspective, and I really do appreciate that. Mahomes I can say the same thing for him too. He's a young kid. He's a good-looking kid. He is living people's American dream.
Yeah.
He really truly is. He came out of no when he got out of college. A lot of people don't realize this. He signed a deal. He signed a contract with the Detroit Tigers. Yes, the baseball team. He was going to be a baseball player, but he's one of these dual sport phenomenons, and he shifted his focus to football. And look what he's done. But you don't hear about him going out and partying and doing all this elaborate off the field bullshit that keeps his name in the headlines primarily for the wrong reasons. Instead, we're seeing him on State Farm ads and things of this nature, which makes me wonder, at kind of as tongue in cheek, is that why State Farm is looking for a 33% hike in rates, because they got to pay him more money to be their spokesman? Be that as it may, it's obviously working for him, Yeah. So I really do appreciate that for what Mahomes is doing for the National Football League as the athlete. Whereas Kelsey, even though he's not trying and he's not leaning into it, he has become the attraction. Yeah. It is what it is. But when it comes down to it, there's 60 minutes of football to play. Still on Sunday, 2 teams are going out to leave New Orleans as champions of the world. And it's going to be a damn shame when Kansas City goes home all boo-boo face because Philadelphia's pulled off the major upset. Sorry, I had to.
No, I got you. And I mean, we'll see how that goes on Sunday, but I have a feeling it's going to go the Chiefs' way. And that's just, I think they work hard. A lot of people don't realize this about, I mean, you bring up Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is one of the hardest working people. I was just listening to Drinking Bros a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about they went to the last Denver game against Kansas City where Carson Wentz started the game. Like, they sat all their starters. That's the one that they got annihilated in. They said, yeah, they just pretty much gave the game to Denver. I mean, it also knocked Joe Burrow. But Ross Patterson on there was talking about they had field passes to go down on the field, and he said there was nobody on the field, but there was one guy on the field that was going through his progressions and practicing and warming up and just working out and getting ready. And that was Pat Mahomes. Nobody else was on the field. He wasn't even playing that day. That's how dialed in this guy is, and how much he loves football and how much he works to get to where he is that even when he's not playing and it's supposed to be his time off to rest, he's the only one on that field working to get ready for a game that he's not even playing in, just to keep the progressions going, just to keep working on shit. Like, the guy doesn't stop. He's an animal. And it takes me back, and it reminds me of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan never stopped. You know what I mean? Like, and I keep bringing that comparison in, but he was another one that didn't stop. Patrick Mahomes, he's generally known to be the first one to show up, to work the hardest, and he's the last one to leave. He constantly studies. I mean, if you go back and watch Netflix, they do those great, the series that they did quarterback and then they did receiver. You look at quarterback, you watch that, and Pat Mahomes is one of the stars that was centered around in that series that season. Like, he doesn't stop. I mean, he goes home and he watches video and he studies and he doesn't stop. Football is his life. He wants to be the best. And he's willing to give up so much of his time to invest in becoming the best. And also on top of that, this guy is doing so much for the Kansas City, the market alone. You know what I mean? He's brought a soccer team there. Now they're trying to bring a WNBA team there. He's invested money in the Kansas City Royals. He's a minority ownership, there now. Like, he is part of that community now, and he does so much for that community, and so does Travis Kelce. They do huge things for that community. That is their home, and that's where they're sinking their time and their money in, as they want to do the best that they can for that city, and they both work their asses off for that city.
All right. Clearly, I'm going to have a follow-up to this.
Yep.
Because you've said it a couple times, and I understand why, and I respect it. You've compared him to Michael Jordan. I'm going to compare him to another athlete. And let me preface it by saying I understand what Michael Jordan is. I understand who Michael Jordan was. But Michael Jordan also, when he achieved a certain level of success, he really leaned into his success.
Yeah.
From my perspective, yes, he was the leader of the team. Yes, he did some cool shit for the city of Chicago. Yes, he was the greatest basketball player of all time to this day. I would compare Patrick Mahomes in terms of what he's done on the field to how he is received by his teammates, how people look at him, both in the NFL, which is the overall umbrella, and the fan base that he performs in front of. And the work ethic. The work ethic alone, the first one to leave or the first one to show up, last one to leave, on there, he's doing all the things, even when he doesn't have to. Jordan didn't do that. When Jordan had an off day, Jordan had an off day. He detached. I would compare that mindset of Patrick Mahomes to John Cena.
No, I
because
can see that.
John Cena, up until that promo that he cut on Saturday night after the Royal Rumble, he was that guy. He was the ambassador. He was the hardest working man in professional wrestling, and the amount of charity work that he does, the Make-A-Wish thing, like all of it. So when you're laying all of that out about Mahomes, and I am not what you call the biggest Mahomes fan, I appreciate him. And I do like him as a person, but he's not somebody I cheer for every single week. I can say the same thing for Cena. But the overall impact that they have had on their respective sports or activities or entertainment genre, or however you want to categorize them, are very much neck and neck.
Yeah.
And even though I could not stand Cena when he was in his prime, I recognized him. I saw him and I appreciated what he was doing. I can do that. Not a lot of people can. You either love him or you hate him. But the same is with Mahomes. You either love him or you hate him. There doesn't seem to be a lot of that in between, that gray area. I'm on that sliver of the gray area. I recognize what he does. I appreciate what he does, and I do want him to do good. And I know Kansas City's winning this game on Saturday or on Sunday. I know that, that like something catastrophic would have to happen for that not to be a thing. And the only reason why I say anything about the Eagles, and I said it last week, I'll say it this week, is to bust Tim's balls. Yeah. Because it's not because I am a diehard Eagles fan. I am not. I told the story about why I wear the Eagles hat. It's not because I root for the team. It's because my brother bought me that hat. That is as far as my loyalty to the Philadelphia Eagles goes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But for entertainment purposes, obviously, I'm going to be the burr in Tim's saddle for this week, and that's what makes entertaining audio. But look, I see him, and I recognize him. As far as the outcome of this game, Tim, do you see this being a blowout? Do you see this being a one-sided affair?
No, I see it being a close game, just like it was the last time. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends with a field goal at the very end for the Chiefs to win it, or even just a one-touchdown thing. It's going to be a close game. If Saquon can start getting loose, it's going to get interesting. But if Saquon can't get anything going, I don't see Jalen Hurts being able to do much against that secondary of the Chiefs. But I just don't see it being a blowout. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down to the wire again, just like most Chiefs games do. They are known for winning one-score games, and if it stays within one score, we talked about this stat before, Mahomes is 11 for 11 in one-score games in the postseason. He's perfect. He's the hardest person to beat in the postseason. You leave any time on that clock for him, you're screwed, because he's going to score and they're going to win that game. That's how good he is. And I appreciate you saying all the nice things you said about Mahomes, and I can understand the correlation with Cena, because I feel the same way, and I feel the same way of you know, how much hate Cena got over the years because, I mean, honestly, let's be honest. Cena is one of the greatest of all time to ever do it. Maybe not in a natural athletic, you know, he wasn't the purest of pro wrestlers. I mean, there's much bigger names that you could put out there that were better workers than Cena. But the overall of what Cena was, he was one of the best to ever do it. You know what I
The
mean?
impact on the industry
Yes.
overall that he had,
Yeah.
that's my comparison, because Mahomes is doing that right now.
He's doing it right now. Mahomes has the athletic ability compared to where, like, but then again, I can't knock Cena because I've watched a lot of his matches where he was able to actually get a little bit more athletic, and there was a lot that Cena left on the table. You know what I mean? Like, he was actually better than people saw that he was, but in that industry, you don't need to show that because you don't need to do that because it's not what gets over. You know what I
Right.
mean? You just need to do what gets over, and people don't realize that. But you know, overall, this game's going to be close. It's going to be a good game. They're going to keep it interesting. If Saquon, like I said, if Saquon gets loose, it's going to be real interesting. But I still think at the end of the day, it's going to be within 7. Is my my call. Probably by 3 with a late, you know, field goal by Harrison Butker, because that's what he's known for.
Yeah, I anticipate this is going to be a close game as well, for sure. And like we have laid out here today and in the last few weeks, the key to Kansas City's success is shutting down Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
That has to happen. That has to happen. If that does not happen, this game does not go their way. And you wouldn't think it would rely on one player so heavily. But Jesus Christ, what this kid is doing is legendary. You want to talk about Hall of Fame, you know, and all this and breaking all kinds of records and this, that, and the other thing. Like Barkley is, we're going to be hearing about this dude for a long, long time, unless something catastrophic happens, major injury or something like that, you know, or worse. But yeah, it's going to be real interesting. I'm really hoping for a good. I hate watching one-sided games. I hate watching blowouts. I just don't. Once it gets to a certain point, like unless I am emotionally invested in one of the participants or the teams on that's playing, I will check out. I don't mind telling you. Like, all right, let me know when it's over so I can see the trophy presentation and all the, you know, pomp and circumstance that goes on after the fact, because I do appreciate that part of the big game or the end of the season's series, as it were. But I guess I just want an entertaining game, and I do want to clear the air. And I don't know if perhaps I misspoke a few weeks ago. I know we had alluded to doing some sort of live stream during the Super Bowl. Well, that was when I made mention of that. That's when the Detroit Lions were still in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, once that went off the table, it's like, okay, probably not going to do this. We are not scheduled to live stream during the Super Bowl. So let me just clear the air there. I want Tim to have his time to watch the game without having to worry about broadcasting and, you know, doing, you know, any kind of work while he's watching his team in the biggest game of the year. So that's not to say that we may not pop in, you know, during sometime in the late morning or early afternoon for a quick preview or, you know, for any late breaking news or developments. But as far as the actual game goes, we will not be live streaming during the Super Bowl. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this trade that happened with the Los Angeles Lakers that happened this week that put the entire NBA in a complete uproar. Are you following this at all?
So I've heard about it, and I know I don't even know how to pronounce dude's last name. It's Luca. How do you say his last name?
I just call him
I call
Luca
him
because
Luca. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, his name is Luca.
That's Luca. So everybody, there's a lot of Dallas fans out there that are super upset that he got traded away. I mean, I think he was the NBA's leading scorer last season. And when you have a star like that get traded away, everybody goes in a roar. I don't know all the details of what happened, but it sounds like he got traded away for almost nothing. And there might be more to it than what it seems. I wish we had an NBA guy here to really explain how these things work, because apparently he was up for a super contract that would have paid him a shit ton of money, because apparently now in the NBA, if you stay on a team for so long, your last contract becomes like a super contract or some shit. I don't know how it works, but being traded away, that negates his super contract, so he's only eligible for a certain amount on his next contract. So essentially he got fucked. But I don't understand how that works. I wish, if there's anybody out there that's listening or watches this at any point in time that understands these NBA contracts, because I do not, because this shit wasn't like it back when I used to follow the NBA all the time. I don't have no idea what the fuck a super contract is or anything like that, but it's one of those trades that's throwing everything in an uproar, because you take one of your top players, you trade them away to a team for, bullshit, which, I mean, he can't be mad about it. He got traded to the Lakers. Now he gets to play alongside LeBron and everybody. They'll probably go on to win the fucking NBA championship, and they're building another fucking super team. And this is why I fucking hate the NBA, because you have super teams that are just unbeatable and they go on to win all the fucking time, and there's nobody competitive. And it sucks this year because the Pistons are actually doing pretty good, but once they get to the playoffs, are they gonna be able to beat a fucking super team? Probably not.
No, they're going to run through a fucking buzzsaw.
Yeah, and it sucks.
That's why I brought that up, Tim, because I wanted to make a mention of this, once again, that we are still looking for a regular correspondent for both the NBA and the NHL to be a regular part of the show, especially because after Sunday, man, there is no more NFL until later on in the year. Now we have spring football coming up, and we are going to shed some spotlight on that. I'm within a hiccup or two of finalizing a pretty exciting opportunity for Tim and I, but we want to cover more of the NBA and the NHL, but we want to have somebody on here that is an expert, that is a diehard, that can help us navigate through the super contracts and things of this nature. So if you are interested, we generally record on Wednesday evenings as we're doing this live stream right now. We would love to have you a part of the team. You can hit up either Tim or I, or the PFC Network page, or the Sports Reel podcast page on Facebook. If you are interested, let one of us know, and we will get the ball rolling on this. Now, couple more things I want to make mention here, and like I said, we're going to end the show with talking a little bit about the Royal Rumble, because some interesting stats came out of that particular show. And I realize this is not a wrestling podcast, but there are wrestling fans who do tune in because they enjoy when Tim and I do talk wrestling. We don't hear a lot of Tim's experience in the business. But make no mistake, Tim was a very successful worker in the world of professional wrestling. But before we get to that, you mentioned LeBron James. This guy, and I know I'm going to get heat for this, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Send me your hate tweets. I do not give a fuck about anything, if I can be honest with you. But LeBron James is a big reason why the NBA is the way it is right now.
Yep.
And I have become so disenchanted with the entire league, because he has been allowed to kind of rule the roost, as it were. He's been allowed to do anything he wants, whether it's good for business or not. But because it's LeBron James, we're all supposed to just give him a pass. And look, I understand the guy is an amazing basketball player. Yes, absolutely he is. Though his stats are astronomical. A lot of success, this, that, and the other thing. The natural comparison to Jordan, I get it. However, he is also one of the reasons why we have these, or why super teams are allowed to be a thing and the rest of the league is just there to fill spots. And it's not fun anymore. The NBA is not fun to watch anymore. It has become a shell of what it once was, from my perspective. But I also understand, before anybody jumps on me, I understand that at my age, I am not the target demo anymore.
Well, I think if you look at the ratings perspective, I think you're right on the mark there. So,
right. Now, I say that to say, LeBron's son, they often say that the apple doesn't fall from the tree, right?
Yeah.
Can you really say that about this dynamic? Because what this kid's been doing since he's been in the NBA. Now the storyline purpose is very endearing. Gets to play alongside the father, and he's there to help, navigate his young son's young career in the NBA and all this other stuff. And like, I can really appreciate that. But when the son isn't, what's the word? I'm trying to be respectful here. When he's not producing on the level that people expected him to, and it's not fair to him, number one. They expected him to come out of the gate and just be this phenom, the next big phenom, and unfortunately, that just is not materializing right now. At some point, for the betterment of the team, for the betterment of the league, you've got to take the LeBron card and put it off to the side and focus on, because it's pissing the other players off that this kid is getting playing time when he's not producing, when there's other people on that bench that are. I feel like if something isn't done about this relatively soon, you're going to start seeing a real negative backlash towards LeBron's son, which in turn is going to make LeBron feel a certain kind of way, assuming he gives a shit about how his kid is being treated. And I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's a fantastic father. But at some point, we've got to separate the myth from reality. Okay, yeah, he's LeBron James' son, and yeah, he has a lot of hype, but if you're not putting the ball in the basket, it don't make a shit and bit of difference who you are and what you're doing, right? Because at the end of the day, it's whatever team has the most points on the board. That's what matters, right? What's your takeaway?
That's all that matters. I think you summed that up pretty well. He's not as good as his dad, unfortunately. He got drafted there because of his dad. Would have you been drafted anywhere else? I don't know. He got drafted high, if I remember. He got drafted pretty high in that draft, and I don't think he would have made it to any other team, unfortunately. For him, I should say. But to play out the storyline for LeBron to be able to play with his son, cool story. I mean, we've seen it in wrestling with Ray and Dominic. You know what I mean? To be able to do that. But it's not panning out. They need to be realistic, and maybe that's why they went and made this Luka trade, that they stole Luka from Dallas, and it sounds like Dallas ate shit on this one. But it's we'll see how his progression goes. But so far, it's not out the gate like LeBron was.
Back to that trade thing. The Dallas Mavericks are owned by Mark Cuban, who is a pretty successful businessman.
Well, actually, I was reading up on this. I want to play that. They were bought in 2023. Mark Cuban,
really?
Cuban is a minority owner of that team now.
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, I didn't know it either.
That explains why this was allowed. Because when I heard this, Tim, I was like, how? What? Mark Cuban allowed this to happen? This is not the same Mark Cuban that, was knocking shit down because things weren't going his way. He had a passion for the Mavericks.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, how did he allow this to happen? Well, that makes all the sense in the world. So
Yeah.
never mind. Never mind.
But anyways, let's break out with the Royal Rumble and then finish it up because I still got to eat dinner tonight, and I know you got to get to work. So
I gotta get to work. Right. Yeah. So I know you watched the Royal Rumble.
I did.
And you know, one of the big four pay-per-views from WWE broke all kinds of records. 70,000 people filled Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Easy for me to say. A couple of things though about this show that stood out. Number one, the commentary kept poking jabs at the NFL referees during the course of
that's
that.
Pat McAfee.
Yeah. But I think a couple of times, like Michael Cole was the one who was feeding into it. And a couple of them, I felt like McAfee was getting a little uncomfortable because he's still very much dialed into the football scene. You know what I'm saying? College game day and all that shit. And he is a legend in Indianapolis. Jey Uso winds up winning this thing and is going to WrestleMania to face presumably Gunther for the world heavyweight. Yeah. But the one stat that really stood out, that the Royal Rumble drew more people to that stadium than Taylor Swift. And I thought, how can that be? Because she's setting record after record after record. And the way they had that buildings set up, they no longer block out like the back half of the stadiums anymore. They have a very modest entranceway and then a very long aisle. But with 70,000 people in there, Jey Uso winning, Charlotte Flair returns. She wins the women's Royal Rumble match.
So predictable, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as she came out, we were like, she's winning.
That's what I said too. I was like, it's and I told my girl that too. I'm like, it's hers to win. Now, the return for me for the women's match, the biggest part of that was the return of Alexa Bliss. I was so goddamn excited when Alexa Bliss made her return. But you're right, Charlotte Flair returns. She wins. I was like, man, are they really going to push her as a babyface going into WrestleMania? If you watched Raw on Monday on Netflix, that crowd ain't having it, bro. Yeah. She is not going to be that uber popular babyface. She's a Flair. You know what I mean?
She's going to go after Ripley because she's a big baby face. So you need that big face versus heel. And the same thing with Jey Uso. Like when we were watching it come down to the end, I'm like, who makes sense here? Depends on what belt they go after. You know what I mean? It would make more sense to see somebody like Punk or somebody that could really go. I know Punk's a babyface, but he could spin it off and play it to build that match against Cody. But the only match that makes sense for Jey Uso at this time is Gunther, because I don't see Jey Uso really making a run at Cody. I still think Cody's going to go against either like a CM Punk or a Roman. Or even, I've heard rumors of The Rock returning to, face him. You know what I mean? You're going to need somebody at that stature to face Cody. Unfortunately for Jey Uso, he got put in position to win in a year where he's got to go after that. I still consider Gunther's belt to be the secondary belt. It doesn't mean as much as Cody's belt. You know what I mean? Cody's the champion. Any way you look at it, Gunther's, to me right now, the way they've built that belt, it's equivalent to the United States title. You know what I mean? It's not much more, unfortunately. In the right hands, it could be better. You know what I mean? But the way that they've built that belt, there hasn't been too much of a push to really build that belt to the same level as Cody's belt. Unlike when, they split the belts and you had separate champions on separate shows. Right now, with Cody jumping over to Raw all the time, it builds Cody as the main champion of the company, you know what I mean? So it leaves Gunther kind of in the past. And I think that kind of started when they put the belt on Damian Priest. And I like Damian Priest, but I think that whole relevance started right there when they did that. It made it a secondary championship. They should have kept it on Seth. To be honest, Seth carried that belt better than Damian Priest did, and it kept it relevant up there with the, being equivalent to the other championship.
I feel like I couldn't agree more. I feel like with the World Heavyweight Championship, this is a world title that gives new opportunities to new main event superstars, which is why we saw Damian Priest in the position that he was. He cashed in Money in the Bank last year at WrestleMania, held it until SummerSlam, but he wasn't moving the needle in the way that they needed it to. Gunther is as believable of a professional wrestler as there is right now. That dude looks like he could rip your fucking throat out without batting an eye. You know, he just does not play. And I saw immediately online the backlash that Uso was getting. Why did they put it on him? It should have been Cena. It should have been Roman. It should have been Punk. It should have been McIntyre. You could make an argument for all of that. But my God, bro, when Jey Uso walked out and opened up Monday Night Raw for his promo, they made the right decision. And if any wrestling fan takes exception and tells me that Jey Uso does not deserve this spot, this opportunity, then you need to quit watching wrestling or go watch AEW, because that shit don't make no sense to me.
Real quick, he is super over, and you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Yes movement.
Yes.
To be honest, how over he is. You know, when everybody's screaming yes, everybody's just sitting there eating, throwing their hands up and down. Even after his match at the Royal Rumble, they were all going nuts. That's 70,000 people just going along with him. He is over like Daniel Bryan was over, you know, at that point in time. And if they don't put him against Cody, I think they're dropping the ball. But I don't think they're going to do that, because they need a story to build. How do you build two big baby faces against each other? It doesn't make fucking sense.
Right.
I mean, but it could make sense. You know what I mean?
If the story's there.
If the story's there, but I don't think they haven't built enough between those two. They're building more, even on Monday Night Raw, because I did watch Monday Night Raw. Once again, like it's easy to watch now that it's on Netflix. It's 2.5 hours long, like barely any commercials. It's easy to watch. I can scan through it real quick. You know what I mean? And it's like the first one out, Gunther. You know what I mean? Which makes sense. It's Raw. He's the Raw champion. You know what I mean? But it's like, I think that's the way that they're going to go. But with as over as he is, they need to go against Cody. But I don't think they're going to be willing to put him over Cody, which is a shame. I watched them do with this Shinsuke a few years back when he won the Rumble. Shinsuke was super over, huge. Everybody was singing along with his music. Like, his music was huge. He was over. He won the Rumble, and then he lost a match at Mania, and then he's just been lost in, you know,
mid-card.
Yeah, mid-card since then, which is kind of shitty on his end, but I think that had a lot to do with Vince more than it would have been a Triple H at the time.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, and this will be the last thing that we make mention. Triple H is going into the Hall of Fame this year. He's going to headline, not as a member of DX, but on his own accord. Well deserved, in your opinion?
Oh yeah, 100%. But
all right. We are going to be breaking more of the WWE stuff later this weekend on the Hot Tag with Sean Grugel. And then a week from Friday, we'll be back on ONTV for the Fatal 4-Way for our special Valentine's Day edition of that particular show, where the Mount Rushmore is going to be real-life power couples in professional wrestling. So we're going to be tying all that in. And we may do a special tribute to Greg the Hammer Valentine. No, I'm just kidding. Calm down. Anyway, Tim, always great to sit down with you, my friend, and talk sports with you. I'm going to be thinking about you this week. I'm sure we'll be in contact through text or what have you during the Super Bowl on Sunday. So, I'm going to have to send my condolences after Philadelphia wins this goddamn thing. So
I'm sure you will. I'm sure I'll do it the same way once Kansas City wins, and I'll be like, I fucking told you.
We appreciate everybody tuning in here, whether it was on the live stream or if you tuned in on the traditional RSS feed on Spotify and iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. So with that, go out, be awesome to yourself and to each other. Be careful this weekend. Have a good time. Enjoy the big game. We'll see you next week right here on the Sports Reel podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network.
Go Chiefs.